Hi, welcome to Set 5 Artist Lecture, and this is possibly one of my most favorite sets that we do. Um, Traditionally, when I've taught this class in the past, this is where everyone really does this huge shift with their work. Um, so I'm very excited. Uh, if you haven't watched the composition lecture or read the composition PDF, definitely do that in conjunction with this. With this set, we're really going to emphasize composition along with everything else we've learned. Remember, we're building upon these set of skills. And this is such a fun unit. So let's get in. And if you, this is also still in chapter 2. Reread page 77 in your book too, which is visual systems. We're creating art that mimics nature, which is exactly what this is. So 2.8 is design from nature, cross sections. So the concept is cross-section plant growths, fruits and vegetables can serve as a creative stimuli. Phonetic trigger mechanisms simplify, transfer, and then the studio action is when to select a fruit or vegetable as a stimulus for a subject for analysis and design. Cross sections reveal the interior structure. So it says make several drawings. We're only going to focus on one. You're going to take stylized abstract renderings of fruits or vegetables. That's what we're specifically looking for. And try to use something more interesting than a potato. So this is a photographer that takes cross sections of a kiwi, and I think starting off with a photograph is going to be a good point. Now, in this unit, all our marks must be created within the software or scanned imagery that is then digitally edited. So we cannot take images off the internet and then just send me a picture. You can't submit this. It has to be something that's digitally altered and created. So we're going to take stylized and abstract renderings. Maybe you scan something in and work with it. If you've drawn something in and scan it, that's very cool. We'll also talk about the pen tool, and we'll also talk about image trace in Illustrator, which is very cool. So it's kind of an Illustrator demo, but you can use Photoshop as well. So this is a photographer who worked in physical medium. A lot of photographers take away from the photographs and the prints and all. But she made paper out of fruit cross sections because she was really inspired by this. So she made this paper out of cucumbers, and it's sort of this huge mess. So the point of inspiration is that you're not just doing just one, you can layer it, overlap, and have a nice texture going on. Think about negative and positive space with composition. This is an artist who does this drawing. It's very stylized, very in depth. There's a lot of intricate parts to it, which are really nice, but it's also sort of abstract that you don't see it as sort of this fruit or vegetable. It's sort of these parts that are overlapped, and I think almost the hyper-realism of it really helps here. And this is, she works in surface design. And I'm going to try to find some information on surface design because I think it's really interesting. I think that we could all kind of talk about. So she takes cross sections of fruits or vegetables and she makes patterns out of it. So jumping off of what we did last week, maybe you want to continue thinking about patterns and transformations. So she makes she makes drawings, blows them up to silk screens. This is all hand done. This is hand printed in a silk screen. Definitely look her up. Her name's right there, Elizabeth Ordone. It's all hand done, layered, thinking about composition within these large panels. Here's another one for pieces close up, and this is all hand done screen printing. But something like this would easily translate into digital. I know several of you come up with to me being like, hey, I'm having difficulty. I know what I want to draw. I know how I would do this on pen and paper, but taking it to a digital space is difficult. taking your pen and paper first, then translating into digital is really great. You could create these outlines in the software, Photoshop or Illustrator. Um, you can have fun with it. These kind of marks, they're layering over. So this is a paper cut. And again, we look at all sorts of different types of art here, at the radish. But sort of seeing the intricate sort of waves, which kind of make it not appear like a radish at all. This is a pomegranate. I get a lot of pomegranates. Try not to give me pomegranates. A lot of students submit pomegranates. They're very interesting, but I think I've seen so many pomegranates. Another pomegranate. So this is kind of a woodcut printmaking, but this is something you can easily apply to a digital process. And you can take your photographs, kind of trace them and use them as groundwork. It's just I don't want to see photographs in the end result. This is just a simple pattern. I think it's like a fabric pattern or a desktop background, but something like this could be really nice. There's that again. Again, fabric or wallpaper. Sculpture. Fabric or wallpaper. So this is student examples. Again, sort of laying it as a trace background. Instead of it just floating in space, there's something in the background really kind of energizing to keep it, think about that contrast, push and pull. Definitely this is very fun, thinking about what is left. Really abstract, you get the idea that it is some sort of fruit or vegetable, but you don't get the full information. There's a nice kind of swooping going around. Their abstraction. This is very cool. I really like this one. It's cut in half, and there's this nice pattern that's sort of abstract. Some parts are in, some parts are out. There's shift in color in a few. And this is kind of paying attention to the golden mean. Thinking about pattern, sort of creating this sort of larger repeated pattern shape. And this is really nice, sort of thinking about what is on the edge. So a lot of times you guys place everything in the center, but push things out, which is really nice. Two point nine, so this is Design from Nature axle systems. So axle systems are symmetrical designs which are characterized by a line, which form in spaces or arranged. So this is sort of something that each side is kind of split in half and it's kind of repeated on both. So a leaf is an axle system. A feather is an axle system. So this is the same thing as 2.8. Again, you're taking stylistic renditions from an axle pattern. So it's the same process, but definitely try to use a different approach. Challenge yourself. And again, all marks must be created within the software, no photographs. So looked at Monica briefly with the cucumbers. She did these large scanned-in prints of lettuces. And this is titled lungs because it looks like lungs. So thinking about the metaphor of it. Andy Goldsworthy, he does a lot of art in nature, and it's supposed to be temporarily. Sort of a digitalized, stylized edition. Nice drawings. Think about the contrast of this bright wine, this sort of grayed paper, and these marks. There's something about highlighting and it's drawing you that in because it's that contrast. Super stylized. I thought this was really nice. Trees are definite axle systems. You can, doesn't have to appear green. It could be different colors. Have a lot of fun with it. Maybe you kind of add a little bit more to it. This is a paper cut. This is a bath mat. I always pulling a bath mat in for you guys. I think that positive and negative space, figure and ground. Student work. So taking the sort of this leaf as an axle system, trying to be abstract with it. Each part's a little different, and think about a radial composition. The human body is an axle system, so this was a fun approach. These are all so very different. So 2.10 is Design from Nature explosion patterns. So explosion patterns are radial configurations characterized by forces and elements which diverge from a single or multiple nodes. So they kind of come from a center point and they explode out. So they could be thistles, flowers, palms, dandelions, sea anemones, all sorts of fun stuff. So you're in a research thing, again, it's the same sort of process as before. We're taking abstraction stylized. You can create marks from the internet. If you're pulling it, you create marks within the software. If you're pulling things from the internet, they must be layered, edited, blended. You can't just be like, oh, this is a picture of a jellyfish that I put down. You have to kind of really build upon it. You do a demo on image trace, maybe that'll be something interesting to play around. Again, you can't just image trace something. You have to modify it and blend it and use it as a source to work off of. So trees are also explosion patterns. Another Andy Goldsworthy. And maybe you're arranging objects in an axle pattern as well. More paper cut. Sculpture. Student work. So this is an example of you using images off the internet. They're very kind of layered. and built upon themselves. So 211 is designed from nature branching systems. So designs can be derived from inflorescent patterns, the mode of budding or blooming of flower clusters. I also try to think of rooted. Roots are also branching systems, tree branches, obviously. So they start from a center point and they kind of spiral out, and there's sort of different paths that things could take. So you can do branching systems in nature. I had students inspired by natural or man-made branching systems like waterways, streets, etc. So again, all marks can be trained in the software, but if you images off the internet, they must be layered, edited, blended, etc. And we encourage image trace. They're Andy Goldsworthy. So this is made in sand. So quilt. And this looks like it could be axle systems, but I'm looking at all the quilted parts that are pulling apart and then pulling into new directions themselves. Maybe you tangle things up. This one I think is very cool. Student work. Still plain inspired by the sort of the branching system going on with radial patterning here. So I hope you find some inspiration. I think this is a really fun unit. Um, get some inspiration, go for a walk, take pictures of plants and flowers you see, go to the grocery store and get some fruits and vegetables, cut them up, eat them, delicious, and really have fun with this. Nature could be really fun, and I think this could be a really fun way to start thinking of how to take things to the real world and simplifying it. And it might help with physically putting something in front of you and working off. I encourage sketchbooking, a lot of sketches to really have fun. Draw it straight from the original and sort of subtract parts, add things, and modify as you go on. I think that's a great process to kind of get you kick started. And I can't wait to see all of your work.